Jack had never imagined he would set foot on a world like Velira. From the moment his shuttle descended through the violet clouds, he felt like he had entered a place of dreams and danger. The forests glowed with soft, shifting lights, and massive crystalline structures rose from the ground like mountains made of glass. Even from the shuttle, he could see rivers that sparkled like liquid silver and skies streaked with colors no human eyes had ever seen. He had been sent here as part of a scientific mission. Humans were curious about alien life, and Velira was one of the most advanced civilizations ever discovered. Jack's job was simple in description but daunting in practice. Study the culture, record observations, and report anything that might impact relations between humans and Velirans. He was ready for discoveries, but not for what he would encounter in the royal court. Upon arrival, Jack and his team were escorted to the palace, a massive structure made of gleaming crystals that reflected the light of Velira's twin suns. Every corridor, every room seemed alive. The walls pulsed with a soft glow, almost like the building itself was breathing. Jack walked cautiously, not wanting to offend anyone or misstep in this alien world. The queen received them in a grand hall. She was tall, regal, and radiated authority in a way humans rarely encountered. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver under the sunlight, and her eyes were the color of deep emeralds, sharp and intelligent. She did not smile, but there was power in her silence. Jack felt both awe and fear. He had studied alien hierarchies before, but nothing in books prepared him for a presence like hers. The queen's daughter, Lyra, was different. She was younger, perhaps a few cycles older than Jack would be in human terms, and she moved with curiosity and confidence. Her eyes were bright, constantly observing. She did not greet him with fear or respect at first. Instead, she tilted her head, studying him as though he were a puzzle she intended to solve. Jack felt a strange tension when he looked at her. It was not fear exactly, but a mix of fascination and unease. Lyra was intelligent and quick, asking questions about human customs, diet, and technology. When he answered, she sometimes smiled in a way that made him feel both proud and cautious. His colleagues noticed it too and teased him relentlessly, suggesting that he had already fallen under her spell. Jack did not respond. He knew better than to underestimate her. He kept his distance, speaking only when necessary and maintaining a careful balance. The court of Velira was subtle. A wrong word could cause offense. A wrong glance could be misread as disrespect. Jack did not want to make mistakes. Days passed, and Jack's careful distance did not go unnoticed. The queen, intelligent and perceptive, observed him quietly. One afternoon, as the human walked through the palace gardens, the queen's attendants approached him. "You are requested in the central chamber," one said, her voice polite but firm. Jack's heart skipped. Being summoned by the queen was an honor but also a test. He adjusted his uniform, straightened his posture, and followed the attendants. The central chamber was enormous, with crystal walls that reflected the sun into dazzling patterns. The queen sat upon her throne, motionless, her eyes fixed on him. "Jack," she said, her voice calm but carrying weight, "why do you avoid my daughter?" The question struck him like a cold wind. He had expected conversation, perhaps a test of knowledge, but not this direct inquiry. He hesitated, searching for words. Honesty might offend, but lies could be dangerous here. The queen's eyes did not blink, did not waver. They seemed to look into him, measuring the truth of his soul. I do not avoid her because I dislike her," Jack began carefully. "Lyra is extraordinary. She is intelligent, quick, and observant. I fear that any mistake I make around her could influence her in ways I cannot control." The queen's expression did not change, but the corners of her eyes seemed to soften. She leaned slightly forward, signaling that she was listening, waiting for him to continue. "I respect her too much to risk guiding her in the wrong direction," he added. "I hope, perhaps in time, she will understand why I keep my distance." There was silence. Jack felt exposed as though he had laid his thoughts bare for judgment. The queen did not speak immediately. Then, after a long moment, she inclined her head slightly. "Interesting," she said, her tone unreadable. Most beings would either flee from her curiosity or try to impress her. You choose caution. That is rare. Jack exhaled softly, relieved but still tense. He realized that the queen was not just questioning him. She was testing his judgment, his honesty, and his understanding of the subtle social currents of her world. The queen rose and moved toward him, her presence filling the room. "Your caution is noted," she said. "But do not think that avoiding her will make her disinterest you. Lyra is curious. She notices everything, even the smallest gesture, even the slightest hesitation. She will observe you, Jack. Be aware of that." Jack nodded, his mind racing. He understood now that avoiding her completely was impossible. Every interaction, even a brief glance, could carry meaning, and he would need to navigate this carefully. The queen gestured toward the expansive windows, revealing the city beyond. "Do not misunderstand me," she said. "Your honesty is appreciated. It is rare. Most humans would attempt flattery or false courage. You choose honesty, and that is worth noting." Jack felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. He had not come here seeking favor or recognition, only understanding and knowledge. Yet now, his careful restraint had been noticed by the most powerful being on the planet. "You may return to your quarters," the queen concluded, "but remember my words. Lyra will notice everything. Avoidance is a choice, but it carries consequences." Jack bowed deeply and left the chamber, feeling the weight of her gaze follow him. In his quarters, he sat by the window, staring at the glowing forests below. He thought of Lyra, her sharp questions, her piercing gaze, her energy that seemed to ripple through the air. He understood now that she was not just a curious child. She was a force, and underestimating her could be dangerous for both humans and Velerans alike. Over the following days, Jack observed the palace life more carefully. He learned the subtle gestures of respect, the nuances of conversation, and the silent ways the queen controlled the court. Lyra continued to approach him indirectly, always watching, always testing. Jack responded with measured caution, speaking only when necessary, always respectful, always honest, but never inviting more interaction than he could handle. Despite his restraint, he found himself drawn to her presence. There was something compelling about her curiosity, her intelligence, and the way she seemed to see through pretense. Yet he reminded himself constantly, he must remain careful. He could not allow personal feelings to interfere with his mission, or worse, influence her in unintended ways. One evening, as the twin suns set and the crystal city reflected shades of orange and purple, Jack found himself alone in the gardens again. He watched Lyra from a distance as she studied the plants, her fingers lightly brushing glowing petals. She looked up, catching him observing her. For a moment their eyes met, and he felt the weight of her intelligence, her curiosity, and her silent challenge. He looked away quickly, reminding himself that this was not a game. His caution was not weakness, but strategy. If he failed to navigate these delicate interactions, the consequences could ripple far beyond himself. The queen had already tested him, and he knew that Lyra would continue her own quiet tests. Jack took a deep breath, letting the alien air fill his lungs. He realized that his mission had become more than scientific observation. He was now part of a delicate social web, balancing honesty, respect, and caution. Every word, every glance, every small choice mattered. As night fell, the glowing forests shimmered beneath the moons, and Jack understood that this world was more complex than any he had studied. And in the heart of it, Lyra, curious, brilliant, and unpredictable, was a force he would need to respect, understand, and navigate if he hoped to survive, and perhaps to thrive in the court of Velira. Days passed on Velira, and Jack's life settled into a rhythm of careful observation and quiet strategy. He attended council meetings, walked through the glowing gardens, and studied alien technology with his team. Yet, no matter what he did, he could feel Lyra's presence like a quiet shadow at the edge of his vision. She never confronted him directly anymore, but her curiosity was relentless. Every small gesture he made, every word he spoke, seemed to be analyzed, catalogued, and understood by her. Jack knew that Lyra was testing him, not in malice, but in the way her kind measured others. She wanted to know his limits, his motives, and perhaps whether he was worth her attention. He understood that humans often underestimated aliens, but he had learned quickly that this was dangerous. Velirans were intelligent, subtle, and patient. They could read intentions, lies, and hesitations with ease. Jack's caution was not fear, it was survival. One morning, Jack was called to assist in a scientific demonstration for the Queen. A new form of energy was being harnessed in the palace, one that glowed like liquid starlight. The Queen had invited humans to observe, knowing their perspective could provide valuable insight. Jack entered the chamber, his eyes scanning the machinery and alien engineers at work. Lyra was already there, moving among the equipment, her fingers brushing controls with precise and careful movements. Jack approached cautiously, offering suggestions when asked. Lyra watched him the entire time, tilting her head as if weighing every idea. He answered her questions honestly, never assuming she wouldn't understand and never offering more information than necessary. Their interaction was subtle, a dance of intellect and respect, and yet it carried tension. Both of them understood that a single misstep could change the dynamics of their relationship permanently. After the demonstration, the Queen summoned Jack once again. Her eyes were calm, but there was an intensity beneath the surface, as though she were weighing his every thought. "You continue to avoid direct interaction with Lyra," she said. "Do you understand why I ask again?" Jack nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty." "It is not avoidance out of dislike, nor fear. It is respect for her intelligence and caution for the consequences of my actions. I do not wish to interfere with her decisions or influence her in ways that might be unintended." The Queen's expression softened slightly. "You have answered honestly before, and you answer honestly now. That is rare and it is valuable. Most beings would attempt flattery, deception, or distraction. You choose honesty. I respect that. But know this, honesty alone will not protect you. Lyra is clever, and she observes constantly. She will not be deterred by your caution forever." Jack listened carefully, understanding that the Queen's words were both a warning and a lesson. Avoiding Lyra could protect him temporarily, but eventually he would have to navigate a more direct engagement. The thought made him tense, but he also felt a strange sense of purpose. He was no longer merely an observer. His decisions mattered in ways he had not anticipated. The next day, Lyra approached him in the palace gardens, not directly, but in a way that ensured he noticed her presence. She was studying a rare flower that emitted soft blue light. "Do humans have plants like this on your planet?" she asked, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. Jack shook his head. "Not like this. Some plants glow in the dark, but not with the intensity or subtlety of this one." Lyra tilted her head, observing him. "Why do you keep your distance? You do not fear me, and yet you avoid me. Most humans would speak more or try to impress." "You do not." Jack took a deep breath. He knew this was a test, and he chose honesty. "I avoid you not out of fear, but respect. Your curiosity, your intelligence. I do not wish to influence your choices unintentionally. I wish to observe without altering your path." Lyra studied him silently for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. "Honesty is rare," she said softly. "Most beings would hide behind words or actions. I respect that, though I do not fully understand it yet." Jack nodded, relieved but cautious. "That is all I ask, understanding, eventually. I hope, in time, you will see that my intentions are not to harm or deceive." Over the following weeks, Jack's careful approach began to have an effect. Lyra started testing him less aggressively, though she continued to observe and challenge him in subtle ways. She asked questions about human society, morality, and technology, sometimes with a mischievous tone, other times with genuine curiosity. Jack answered thoughtfully, careful not to overshare, but also not to insult her intelligence. Their relationship evolved into a silent understanding. Lyra realized that Jack's avoidance was not weakness, but strategy. She began to see him as someone reliable, someone who thought before acting, and someone whose words carried weight. Jack, in turn, began to appreciate her intelligence and the way she approached problems with creativity and subtlety. One evening, as the twin suns set over the Crystal City, Lyra approached Jack again, this time more directly. "You are cautious, human," she said. "But why? You do not fear me, yet you keep your distance. Is it simply respect or something more?" Jack considered his words carefully. "It is respect," he said finally, "but also foresight. Your intelligence and curiosity could lead to unpredictable consequences. I do not wish to interfere with your path, nor cause harm unintentionally. Avoiding you is a way to ensure I do not influence you beyond what is necessary." Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly, studying him. "You think yourself clever, human," she said softly, "but you are cautious. That is different from cleverness. You may yet surprise me." Jack smiled faintly. "Perhaps," he said, "but my goal is not to surprise, only to be honest and careful. That is all I can offer." Lyra considered this, then nodded. She did not smile this time, but there was a glimmer of acknowledgement in her eyes. Jack realized that their relationship had shifted. He was no longer simply avoiding her. They had begun a subtle dialogue, a test of respect, intellect, and patience. Meanwhile, tensions in the palace grew. A rival alien faction had learned of Jack's presence and saw it as an opportunity to manipulate both humans and Velirans. Their agents moved quietly, attempting to gather information and influence decisions. Jack's careful approach now had stakes beyond personal interaction. His choices could affect diplomatic relations, alliances, and even the safety of his team. The Queen observed these developments with keen interest. She saw Jack's cautious engagement with Lyra, his honesty, and his judgment in navigating palace politics. She understood that he possessed qualities rare among humans: patience, foresight, and moral clarity. His avoidance was not weakness, it was strategy, and it had value beyond what Jack himself realized. One day, Jack was called to assist in a negotiation between the Queen and a visiting diplomat from a neighboring system. The diplomat, unaware of Jack's human perspective, dismissed him initially. Jack listened quietly, analyzing the conversation, noting subtle shifts in tone and expression. When he finally spoke, his words were measured, offering insights that even the alien leaders had not considered. Lyra observed from a distance, her curiosity piqued. She had begun to see Jack not just as a cautious human, but as someone with insight, integrity, and a subtle strength that commanded respect without force. She realized that his avoidance had been a test for both of them, a way to establish boundaries while demonstrating wisdom. That night Jack reflected on the events. He had entered Velira as an observer, a scientist with a mission. Now he was part of a delicate web of relationships, diplomacy, and subtle influence. His cautious approach to Lyra had earned him attention and respect, but it had also drawn him into the intricate politics of the palace. He understood that the Queen's question, asked so directly, was not just about Lyra. It was about him, his character, his judgment, and his potential to influence events far beyond his control. By answering honestly, he had demonstrated qualities that even the most seasoned Velirans might overlook: patience, honesty, and foresight. Lyra, too, was learning. She began to understand that human caution was not weakness, but a different form of strength. She saw the value in restraint, in observation, and in measured action. Their interactions became a silent education for both, a bridge between species, intellects, and worlds. As the moons rose over the crystal city, Jack knew that the true challenge was only beginning. Avoidance had been his strategy, but understanding, respect, and careful engagement would define the next steps. Lyra would continue to observe, test, and challenge him, and he would need to navigate each interaction with honesty, patience, and wisdom. The story of Jack and Lyra was evolving, a subtle dance of curiosity, intellect, and respect. What began as cautious avoidance had grown into a delicate understanding, one that would shape not only their relationship, but the future of human and Veliran interaction. And through it all, the queen watched, silent but perceptive, noting every action, every word, every glance, and measuring the human who dared to navigate her daughter's curiosity with honesty and care. Jack understood now that avoidance was only the first step. The real journey would be in earning trust, demonstrating integrity, and proving that humans could be more than observers, that they could engage, influence, and inspire even in the presence of beings far more powerful and intelligent than themselves. And so, as the city shimmered beneath the twin moons, Jack prepared himself for the next challenge, a direct engagement with Lyra, one that would test not only his caution but his ability to balance honesty, respect, and human insight in a world unlike any he had ever known. Weeks had passed since Jack first met the Queen and her daughter, Lyra. His cautious approach had begun to pay off, yet he knew the most difficult part of his mission was still ahead. Avoidance had helped him survive the early days, but now the subtle tests, observations, and challenges of the palace required engagement. Lyra's curiosity was no longer casual. She wanted answers, understanding, and perhaps even companionship in thought. Jack realized that every action he took could ripple far beyond what he intended. One morning, Jack was summoned to the Queen's private chambers again. He walked through the crystal halls feeling a quiet tension. This time the Queen did not speak immediately. She studied him in silence, her eyes sharp and unreadable. Finally, she said, "Jack, your caution is known. Your honesty is noted. Yet I wonder, can you engage without faltering?" Jack straightened, meeting her gaze steadily. "I will do my best, Your Majesty. I have learned much since my arrival, and I intend to continue with care, honesty, and respect." The Queen's eyes softened slightly and she motioned toward a smaller, sunlit room where Lyra was waiting. "Then you may speak with her directly. It is time. But remember, your words carry weight." Jack entered the room slowly. Lyra was seated on a low crystal bench, examining a small glowing orb that seemed to hum with energy. When she noticed him, she set it aside and smiled faintly, a mixture of curiosity and mischief. "You've been avoiding me for weeks," she said, her voice light but deliberate. "Do you know why I notice everything you do?" Jack nodded. "I suspected. Your observation is thorough, your intelligence sharp. I hoped my caution would not frustrate you, but I understand that it would not go unnoticed." Lyra studied him quietly. "It has not," she said. "I wondered why a human like you would behave this way. Most would either try to impress me or ignore me foolishly. You do something different. I want to know why." Jack took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "I avoid you not because I fear you, nor because I dislike you. I avoid you because I respect you. Your intelligence, curiosity, and potential could lead to decisions with consequences I cannot foresee. I do not wish to influence you unintentionally or alter your path without cause." Lyra blinked slowly, processing his words. "Respect. Most beings are afraid of me or they try to gain something. You do not. You simply act with care. That is unusual. I do not yet fully understand it, but I notice it, and I appreciate it." Jack felt a faint relief but remained cautious. "That is all I ask, that my actions be understood in time. I do not seek favor, only honesty and fairness in our interactions." For a long moment neither spoke. Then Lyra rose and moved closer, her eyes studying him intently. "You are cautious, human, that is clear, but you are also clever. You have integrity, and that is rare in any being. Most would act without thought, but you choose carefully." Jack nodded. "It is not only for you, it is for the consequences of every action. Your world is complex, your people perceptive. I must act with foresight and care in everything I do." Lyra's expression softened further. She extended her hand, not in a gesture of friendship but as a symbol of acknowledgement. "I see you now," she said. "You are not like the others. I will watch you, yes, but with a new understanding. Perhaps I will learn from you as much as you observe me." Jack accepted the gesture, feeling the subtle shift in their dynamic. He realized that honesty and careful respect had earned him something far more valuable than compliance or favor: trust. Lyra's curiosity would no longer be a challenge he needed to fear, but an opportunity to engage thoughtfully. In the following days, their interactions became more fluid. Lyra began asking deeper questions about human culture, philosophy, and ethics. Jack answered with care, offering insight without preaching, guidance without intrusion. Their discussions sometimes lasted hours, wandering from science to morality to strategy. Each conversation strengthened a mutual respect that neither expected but both appreciated. The Queen observed these interactions silently. She noted Jack's patience, his honesty, and his subtle guidance. He did not dominate Lyra's learning but facilitated it. He allowed her to make decisions, to explore ideas, and to challenge him. She realized that Jack's avoidance had been a clever strategy, not weakness. By keeping distance initially, he had earned credibility and trust in ways that direct engagement might never have achieved. Tensions in the palace continued, however. The rival faction remained a threat, attempting to sway council decisions and manipulate human observers. Jack's careful judgment became crucial. His insights helped the Queen navigate these challenges, revealing weaknesses in enemy plans and offering solutions grounded in both human and Veliran understanding. One evening, as the Crystal City shimmered under the twin moons, Lyra approached Jack in private. She held a small device, glowing faintly. "This is a tool from my people," she said. "I wish to understand how humans would use it. I also wish to understand you better. You have acted with care, honesty, and respect. I have observed you, and I wish to learn more." Jack accepted the device carefully. "I will explain its function and potential uses," he said. "But more importantly, I will also explain my reasoning for every choice I make. Understanding comes from knowledge and reflection, not only observation." They worked together for hours, analyzing the device, discussing its applications, and debating ethical implications. Jack realized that this collaboration was a turning point. Their relationship was no longer defined by avoidance or caution, but by mutual respect and intellectual engagement. Lyra's curiosity, once a challenge, had become a bridge between their species. The Queen entered silently near the end of their session, observing them without interruption. She watched as Lyra and Jack discussed, debated, and reasoned together. She noted Jack's honesty, his patience, and his ability to respect boundaries while engaging fully. She understood that he had accomplished what few humans or Velerans could. He had earned trust through careful thought, integrity, and understanding. Finally, the Queen spoke. "Jack," she said, her voice calm but carrying immense weight, "you have proven yourself in ways I did not expect. Your honesty, your caution, your understanding, all have left me speechless. You have not sought power, influence, or favor, yet you have achieved something far greater: respect and trust." Jack bowed, feeling the weight of her acknowledgement. "I am honored, Your Majesty. I only sought to act with honesty and care. If my actions have achieved more, it is only through your guidance and the patience of your daughter." The Queen's gaze softened as she looked at Lyra. "And you, my daughter, have learned the value of observation, restraint, and trust. Jack has shown that strength comes not only from power but from wisdom, patience, and integrity." Lyra smiled, a true smile this time, free from mischief or testing. "I understand now," she said softly. "Your avoidance was not distance. It was strategy, and it taught me something important. I respect you, Jack, and I value what I have learned from you." Jack felt a sense of fulfillment he had not anticipated. He had come to Valira as an observer, cautious and careful, yet he had become more than that. Through honesty, patience, and respect, he had bridged a gap between species, navigated subtle politics, and earned the trust of a young leader and her mother. The weeks that followed solidified his position. He continued to assist the Queen, mentor Lyra, and navigate the complex web of palace life. His interactions were no longer defined by avoidance, but by engagement, trust, and understanding. Lyra's curiosity became a partnership rather than a challenge, and the Queen's acknowledgement confirmed that his approach had been both wise and effective. As Jack looked out over the glowing forests of Valira one evening, he reflected on how far he had come. What began as cautious avoidance had evolved into mutual respect, understanding, and collaboration. His honesty and foresight had earned him a place in the palace that no human had anticipated, bridging two worlds and creating a path for trust and learning. Jack knew that challenges would continue, that diplomacy, curiosity, and political tension would always test him. Yet he also knew that by remaining honest, respectful, and careful, he could navigate the complexities of this alien world and leave a lasting impact. He had proven that humans, even in unfamiliar worlds, could earn respect, build understanding, and influence outcomes through integrity and thoughtfulness. And as the twin moons rose above the crystal city, casting their gentle light over the palace and forests, Jack felt a quiet satisfaction. He had faced the challenge of Lyra's curiosity, the scrutiny of the Queen, and the subtle dangers of an alien court. He had emerged with respect, trust, and understanding, leaving both the Queen and her daughter in truth, speechless at the unexpected wisdom of a human who chose honesty, care, and foresight above all else.